1 hour ago, the phone call ended. There was no press release, no joint statement, no smiling photo in front of flags. Just silence. And in geopolitics, silence is never neutral. The President of the United States had just delivered a message to European leaders that no one thought would ever be said out loud. The era of automatic security guarantees is over. For 75 years, Europe operated under a single assumption. If anything happened, America would come. That assumption built the European Union's economic model. It shaped defense budgets. It allowed social spending to expand while military spending contracted. And tonight, that assumption collapsed. The call lasted 14 minutes. According to multiple diplomatic sources, the American president informed key European leaders that future U.S. military protection would be conditional. Not symbolic, not rhetorical, financial and structural. NATO would remain, but protection would now require contractual burden alignment. The words were carefully chosen, but the meaning was unmistakable. Pay more or stand alone. Within 30 minutes of the call ending, emergency meetings were convened in Berlin, Paris, Rome, and Warsaw. Financial markets in Asia opened to rumors of transatlantic rupture. Currency traders reacted first. The euro slipped 2.3% in overnight trading before European markets had even opened. Investors were not panicking yet, but they were repositioning. In Berlin, economic advisors ran simulations. Germany's export model depends heavily on U.S. market access and stable security guarantees. A shift toward conditional protection introduces volatility into long-term industrial planning. In Paris, defense officials examined force readiness reports that had not been updated under the assumption of full American reinforcement. The numbers were uncomfortable. In Rome, government leaders debated whether this was negotiation posture or structural shift. In Warsaw, officials took the warning seriously. Poland has increased defense spending dramatically in recent years, but without U.S. air and intelligence support, deterrence equations change. Then came the second shock. An internal policy memo from Washington was leaked. The memo outlined a potential phased redeployment of certain American assets from Europe toward the Indo-Pacific over the next 24 months. Not immediate withdrawal, reallocation. But perception matters more than logistics. The signal was clear. Europe must prepare to defend itself. Markets opened. The DAX fell 6% in the first hour. Defense stocks surged. Banking stocks plunged. Bond yields in Southern Europe ticked upward as investors priced in uncertainty around future growth and defense spending obligations. The European Central Bank convened an emergency stability review. This was not a banking crisis, it was a strategic confidence shock. Meanwhile, in Moscow, analysts observed quietly. Russian state media amplified the narrative of Western division. There was no troop movement, no visible escalation, just commentary. Commentary is sometimes enough. Back in Brussels, European Commission officials attempted to calm the situation. Statements emphasized partnership, ongoing dialogue, and shared values. But behind closed doors, the conversation was different. If U.S. protection becomes conditional, Europe must accelerate strategic autonomy immediately. Strategic autonomy is not a slogan. It is tanks, air defense systems, intelligence satellites, logistics networks, and joint command integration. And those take years to build. France proposed an emergency defense integration summit. Germany hesitated, calculating economic trade-offs. Italy demanded clarity before committing to expanded budget contributions. Eastern Europe demanded immediate reassurance. The fracture was not explosive. It was strategic. Meanwhile, Washington doubled down. A senior U.S. official stated publicly that alliances in the 21st century must reflect 21st century cost realities. The language was fiscal. The implication was geopolitical. Then came the third escalation: energy. A major American LNG supplier announced a pricing reassessment for European contracts beginning next quarter. Energy costs are not symbolic. They hit households, industry, voters. European manufacturing sectors immediately felt pressure in forward contract markets. Political pressure mounted. Public opinion began to shift. Some European citizens argued that the continent should have invested in defense decades earlier. Others argued that America was abandoning its own alliance architecture. Within 48 hours, 3 EU member states signaled willingness to negotiate bilateral defense frameworks directly with Washington. That was the moment Brussels realized this was no longer about policy. It was about cohesion. If countries begin negotiating separately, collective leverage disappears. France warned publicly that bilateral fragmentation would weaken Europe permanently. Germany remained quiet. Poland leaned toward Washington. Italy tried to balance. The European Union was not collapsing, but it was stress-testing itself in real time. Financial markets stabilized slightly by day 3, but volatility remained high. Defense spending proposals flooded national parliaments. Citizens debated military readiness for the first time in a generation. And then came the quiet realization that changed the tone completely. The United States had not destroyed the alliance. It had exposed its dependency. For decades, Europe prioritized economic integration over military autonomy. Now the bill was not financial. It was structural. Could Europe defend itself without immediate American dominance? The answer was complicated. France possessed nuclear deterrence capability. Germany had industrial capacity. Poland had growing defense strength. But integration was incomplete. Joint command mechanisms lacked speed. Procurement systems were fragmented. A continental military strategy did not yet exist. The crisis shifted from panic to calculation. If America recalibrates, Europe must accelerate. An emergency European Defense Acceleration Pact was drafted within 1 week. It proposed pooled procurement, shared air defense networks, integrated cyber command, and rapid deployment brigades. For the first time, European leaders discussed a unified military doctrine independent of automatic U.S. intervention. The American president watched carefully. He had not shattered NATO. He had forced Europe to mature. Markets slowly regained footing. The euro stabilized. Defense manufacturing stocks surged to record highs. Public debate intensified, but did not descend into chaos. The alliance had not ended. It had evolved. And the final realization was the most powerful. Security built on assumption is fragile. Security built on shared capability is durable. The transatlantic relationship did not collapse. It transformed. And the world entered a new era where alliances are negotiated continuously, not inherited automatically. The real question was no longer whether Europe would fall. The question was whether Europe would rise. And that answer would not come from Washington. It would come from Europe itself.